The marble floor gleamed like glass under the chandelier light. But tonight, something felt wrong. Darius Cole stood at the entrance of his own mansion, his hand still resting on the door handle. The silence inside wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, suffocating. Then he heard it, a faint dragging sound, slow, uneven, like something, or someone, struggling. His brows furrowed. He stepped inside, loosening his tie slightly as his sharp eyes scanned the hallway. "Vanessa?" he called out. No answer. The sound came again. Scrape, drag, cough. Darius followed it, each step growing heavier, a strange unease settling into his chest. And then, he saw it, a frail figure at the far end of the hallway, bent, shaking, holding a mop. For a moment, his mind refused to process what his eyes were seeing. Then the figure coughed again, weak, trembling, and slowly turned. "Mom." Quote. The word barely escaped his lips. The mop slipped from her hands and hit the floor with a hollow echo. And just like that, everything inside him shattered. Cut to 3 months earlier. Darius Cole didn't just build wealth. He built power. At 38, he was one of the most respected black billionaires in the country. Known not just for his sharp mind, but for his discipline. He didn't gamble. He didn't take emotional risks. Every move was calculated. That's exactly why his partnership with Vanessa Whitmore worked. On paper, they were unstoppable. Vanessa came from old money, legacy wealth, political connections, generational influence. She was everything the elite world respected. Darius was everything they feared. Together, they dominated. Their company, Whitmore and Cole Enterprises, expanded into real estate, tech, and private equity within just a few years. Headlines called them the most powerful power couple in modern business. And eventually, business turned into marriage, but not the kind people dreamed about. There was no grand love story, no emotional confessions, just one quiet conversation in a glass office overlooking Manhattan. Vanessa had said it plainly. "We're stronger together than apart. Marriage just makes it permanent." Darius didn't hesitate. To him, it made sense. Marriage was just another strategic move. And for a long time, it worked. The mansion life. Their home reflected their partnership. Massive, cold, and flawless. A modern architectural masterpiece sitting on acres of land, filled with staff, security, and silence. Everything had a place. Everything had a purpose, including people. Vanessa ran the house the same way she ran the company. Efficient, controlled, emotionally detached. She wasn't loud. She didn't scream. That would have been easier to deal with. Instead, she was precise. Every word measured, every look calculated, every action intentional. And Darius? He trusted her, not because he loved her deeply, but because she had never given him a reason not to. The only soft spot. There was only one place where Darius wasn't calculated. One place where his sharp edges softened. His mother, Evelyn Cole. She had raised him alone in a small apartment, working double shifts, skipping meals so he could eat. He remembered nights she pretended she wasn't hungry. Remembered her worn hands, her quiet strength. To him, she wasn't just family. She was the reason. So when her health started failing, there was no discussion. He brought her into the mansion. First impressions. The day Evelyn arrived, Vanessa greeted her with a perfect smile. Polished, graceful, flawless. "Mrs. Cole," she said, extending her hand. "Well, I hope you'll be comfortable here." Evelyn smiled gently. a little nervous. Thank you, dear. Darius watched the exchange, satisfied. Everything seemed right for the first few days. It was. Meals prepared on time, nurses assigned, rooms arranged perfectly. Vanessa played her role well. Too well. The subtle shift. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. It started with small things. Almost invisible. A delayed meal. A cold tone. A look that lingered just a second too long. Evelyn noticed, but she said nothing, because she had lived long enough to understand something important. Not all cruelty is loud. Some of it is quiet. Vanessa unmasked. Private. One evening, Darius was away on a business trip. The mansion felt different without him. Quieter. Colder. Evelyn sat in her room, a blanket over her legs. When Vanessa walked in, no smile this time, no warmth, just silence. Then, Vanessa spoke, calm, flat. I think it's time we set some boundaries. Evelyn blinked softly. I'm sorry? Quote. Vanessa stepped closer, her heels clicking against the marble. This isn't a retirement home. And I'm not a caregiver. The words landed like ice. Evelyn swallowed gently. I don't want to be a burden. Quote. Vanessa cut her off. Good. Then don't be. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Unforgiving. Then Vanessa leaned in slightly. Her voice dropping to a whisper. And one more thing. Quote. Evelyn's fingers tightened around the blanket. If you ever tell Darius anything that disrupts this house, this business, or this marriage, quote, a pause, cold eyes locking onto hers, I will make sure he loses everything. Evelyn's breath caught. Vanessa straightened, composed again. We understand each other, right? Quote, a long silence. Then, Evelyn nodded, slowly. Back to present. Hook continues. Darius stood frozen, his chest rising and falling heavier now. His eyes locked on his mother. Her fragile body, her trembling hands, her labored breathing, and that mop on the floor. This wasn't confusion anymore. Standing. This was something else. Something deeper. Something wrong. He took a step forward. Then another. His voice came out low, dangerously calm. Mom. Quote. She tried to straighten, to compose herself, but her body betrayed her. I was just helping. Quote. Helping? The word echoed in his mind. Something inside him snapped quietly. Not loud, not explosive, just breaking. His jaw tightened, his fist slowly clenched, and for the first time in years, Darius Cole wasn't thinking like a billionaire. He was thinking like a son. And whatever he was about to uncover next was going to change everything. Darius didn't speak immediately. He just stood there, staring at his mother as if trying to rewrite what he was seeing. Evelyn avoided his eyes. That alone told him something was wrong. His mother had never been afraid to look at him. Not when they had nothing. Not when life was hard. Not even when he made mistakes growing up. But now, she looked guilty. And that made no sense. Mom, he said again. Softer this time. Why are you doing this? Quote. Evelyn forced a weak smile, her voice trembling under the weight of something unspoken. I told you, I was just helping. Sitting all day makes me feel useless. Darius's eyes narrowed slightly. That wasn't her. His mother wasn't a woman who needed to prove her worth through labor. She had earned her rest years ago. Something didn't add up. Before he could press further, the sound of heels echoed through the hallway. Sharp, confident, controlled. Vanessa. She appeared at the far end. dressed impeccably as always, her expression calm, too calm. For a split second, her eyes flickered between Darius, the fallen Mop, and Evelyn, and then she smiled. "Darius," she said smoothly, walking toward him, "you're home early." He didn't respond, didn't even look at her. His attention stayed on his mother. That was new. Vanessa noticed. Of course she did. Her smile tightened, just slightly. "I thought your flight wasn't until tonight," she continued, tone still composed. Still no answer. Now the air shifted. Subtle, but undeniable. Darius finally spoke, but his voice had changed. Lower, colder. "Why is she cleaning?" Quote. The question landed between them like glass. Vanessa didn't hesitate. She insisted, she replied lightly. "You know how she is. She hates sitting still." Evelyn's fingers tightened. Darius noticed every small detail. He noticed. Slowly, he turned his head toward Vanessa, and for the first time since entering, he looked directly at her. "Is that true?" he asked. Evelyn opened her mouth, then closed it. Her silence screamed louder than words. Vanessa stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Darius's arm. "Darius," she said softly, almost amused, "you're overreacting. It's just a mop." Just a mop. Something in his expression hardened. But before he could respond, a quiet voice spoke from behind them. "Sir, that's not true." All three turned. Standing near the hallway entrance, Lena, dressed in a simple staff uniform, her hands slightly trembling, but her eyes steady. Vanessa's expression didn't change immediately, but something darker passed beneath it. "Excuse me?" Vanessa said, her tone dangerously polite. Lena swallowed, but didn't back down. "She didn't insist," Lena said, her voice soft but clear. "She was told to." Silence. Heavy. Sharp. Darius's gaze snapped back to Vanessa. Slowly. Very slowly. "Explain," he said. Vanessa let out a small breath, almost like a laugh. "Oh, please," she said. "We're really doing this?" Taking a staff member's word over. Quote. "She's not lying." The words came from Evelyn. Weak. Barely above a whisper, but they landed harder than anything else. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward her. This time, no mask, just irritation. That was all Darius needed to see. His chest rose slowly, controlled, but inside, everything was shifting. "Mom," he said gently, kneeling slightly in front of her, "tell me what's been happening." Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Not dramatic, not loud, just quiet pain that had been waiting too long. "I didn't want to ruin things for you," she said. "You worked so hard. I thought I could manage." Darius's jaw tightened. "Manage what?" Quote. A long pause. Then, "She didn't want me here." The truth, finally spoken, hung in the air like smoke. Darius didn't look surprised. He looked disappointed, but not at his mother. At himself. "How long?" he asked quietly. Evelyn hesitated. "That doesn't matter." Vanessa interrupted sharply. "It does," Darius cut in. The temperature in the room dropped instantly. Evelyn whispered, "Since you left for your last trip." That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. 3 weeks his mother had been. He stopped the thought before it could fully form. Because if he let himself feel it completely, he wouldn't stay calm. And right now, calm was the only thing holding everything together. Vanessa crossed her arms slightly, her patience thinning. "This is getting out of hand," she said. "I run this house efficiently. If she contributes in small ways, I don't see the issue." Darius stood up slowly, towering now. His presence filled the space in a way it hadn't before. This isn't about efficiency, he said. Vanessa tilted her head. Then what is it about? Quote, he stepped closer. Not aggressive, but undeniable. Respect. The word hit differently. Vanessa's lips curved faintly. You're being emotional, she said. That's not like you. Maybe she thought that would ground him. Remind him of who he used to be. Calculated, detached, controlled. But something had changed. Maybe I should have been, he replied quietly. Silence. Then, Lena stepped forward again. Hesitant but determined. There's more, she said. Vanessa's eyes snapped toward her. Be careful, she warned softly. But Lena kept going. She's been sick, Lena said, looking at Darius. Really sick. Some days she can barely stand. I've been helping her when I can. Bringing her medicine. Cleaning for her. Darius's head turned slowly toward his mother. You've been sick? He asked. Evelyn tried to brush it off. It's nothing serious. Quote, stop, he said gently. Not harsh, but firm. Don't protect this situation. That word, protect, landed heavily. Because that's exactly what she had been doing. Protecting him. At her own expense. Darius exhaled slowly, running a hand over his face. For the first time, he looked tired. Not physically, but something deeper. Like a man realizing everything he trusted might not be what he thought. Vanessa broke the silence. If you're done with this performance, she said coolly, we have a board meeting tomorrow that actually matters. Darius looked at her. Really looked this time. And what he saw wasn't a partner, wasn't a wife, just someone who valued power more than people. And for the first time, that didn't align with him anymore. Not even close. He turned away from her and walked toward his mother. Gently, carefully, he helped her sit down. Then he looked at Lena. Thank you, he said quietly. She nodded, surprised but respectful. Then, Darius stood still for a moment, thinking, processing. He looked tired, not physically, but something deeper, like a man realizing everything he trusted might not be what he thought. Vanessa broke the silence. If you're done with this performance, she said coolly, we have a board meeting tomorrow that actually matters. Darius looked at her. Really looked this time. And what he saw wasn't a partner, wasn't a wife, just someone who valued power more than people. And for the first time, that didn't align with him anymore. Not even close. He turned away from her and walked toward his mother. Gently, carefully, he helped her sit down. Then he looked at Lena. Thank you, he said quietly. She nodded, surprised but respectful. Then, Darius stood still for a moment, thinking, processing, deciding, because the next thing he did wouldn't just affect his home. It would affect everything. And deep down, he already knew there was no going back after this. The silence didn't break. It thickened. Darius stood in the center of the hallway, one hand resting lightly on the back of the chair where his mother now sat. His mind wasn't racing. It was sharpening. That was always the difference with him. He didn't react. He decided. Vanessa watched him closely. Her arms folded. Her posture still elegant. But her patience was thinning. She had seen this look before. Boardrooms. Negotiations. Takeovers. It was the look Darius had right before he dismantled someone's entire position. Calm. Focused. Irreversible. But this time, she didn't think it applied to her. You're letting this get emotional, she said coolly. You're better than that. Darius didn't answer. Instead, he turned slightly toward Lena. How long has she been helping my mother? He asked. Lena hesitated, glancing briefly at Vanessa. Vanessa's gaze sharpened like a blade. Answer carefully, she said under her breath. Darius didn't raise his voice, but the authority in it was absolute. Answer honestly. Lena straightened. Since the second week, she said. After you left. Darius nodded slowly. That matched the timeline. Everything was aligning now. Too clearly. He turned back to Vanessa. And you knew she was sick. Not a question. A statement. Vanessa exhaled, almost bored. She's old, Darius. Being sick isn't exactly surprising. That was it. Not the words, but the way she said them. Cold, dismissive, final. Something in Darius shifted completely. Not anger, not rage. Something quieter, more dangerous. Clarity. He stepped forward, slowly, every movement deliberate. You threatened her. Vanessa's expression flickered, just for a second. Then it reset. I manage risk, she replied. That includes people who could destabilize what we've built. Darius's eyes darkened. She's my mother. And this, Vanessa gestured around the mansion, is an empire. Silence. Two worlds. Two values. Standing face to face. Darius spoke again, his voice lower now. You told her if she spoke, I'd lose everything. Vanessa didn't deny it, because in her mind, it wasn't wrong. It was strategy. I told her the truth, she said. Everything you have is tied to me. The contracts, the investors, the structure. It's all interconnected. She stepped closer, softening her tone, trying a different approach. You're reacting to a moment, she said quietly. Don't destroy years of work over something this small. Something small. Behind him, Evelyn closed her eyes. Lena looked down, her hands clenched tightly. But Darius? He didn't move, didn't blink, didn't soften. Small? He repeated, and for the first time, there was a crack in his voice. Not weakness, emotion, raw, controlled, real. She was on the floor, he said. She could barely stand. Vanessa sighed, as if this conversation had gone on too long. She's still alive, isn't she? Quote. The words hit like a slap. Lena gasped softly. Evelyn's breath caught, and Darius went completely still. That was the moment. The exact moment everything ended. Not loudly, not dramatically, just decisively. He nodded once. Slow, final. Then he spoke. Draw up the papers. Vanessa blinked. Excuse me? Quote. Our separation, he said. Business and personal. For the first time, she looked surprised. Not emotional. Not hurt. Just caught off guard. You're not serious. I've never been more serious. Vanessa let out a short laugh, shaking her head. This is ridiculous. You think you can just walk away from everything we built? Quote. Yes. The answer came too easily, too calmly, and that's what made it real. Vanessa stepped closer now, her voice dropping. Let me be very clear, she said. If you do this, you walk away with nothing. She gestured toward the walls, the floors, the entire mansion. This life? Gone. A step closer. The company? Gone. Another step. Your status, your influence, your network. Every door you walk into now opens because of what we built together. She leaned in slightly. And I will close every single one of them. Silence. Heavy. Threatening. Real. Evelyn shook her head weakly. Darius. Don't, she whispered. I don't want to be the reason. Quote. He turned to her instantly, kneeling in front of her again. His voice softened completely. You're not the reason, he said gently. A pause. Then, you're the line. She looked at him, confused. He held her hand carefully. The line I should have never let anyone cross. Tears filled her eyes. Darius stood back up and faced Vanessa. Everything about him was different now. Lighter, stronger, unshaken. "You're right," he said. "I will lose everything." Vanessa's lips curved slightly, thinking she had won. But then, he continued, "But not what matters." The words landed with quiet finality. And suddenly, Vanessa realized something she hadn't expected. She wasn't negotiating anymore. She was losing. "You're making a mistake," she said, her tone tightening. Darius shook his head once. "No," he replied, "I'm correcting one." He turned away from her, walked toward Lena. "Help me pack a few things for my mother," he said. Lena nodded immediately. "Yes, sir." Vanessa's voice cut through the air. "If you walk out that door," she said, "don't come back." Darius didn't even turn around. "I won't." No hesitation, no doubt, just truth. And that was the moment. The billionaire walked away from his empire. Not because he lost, but because he finally saw what it cost him. And chose something else. Something Vanessa never understood. Dignity. As Lena helped Evelyn stand, Darius supported her gently, carefully guiding her toward the exit. Step by step, away from the mansion, away from the power, away from the life he built. The doors opened, cool air rushed in, and just before stepping out, Darius paused, not to look back, but to let it settle. Everything he was leaving behind. Then, he walked forward, and didn't look back. Because some decisions don't just change your life. They reveal who you really are. And for Darius Cole, this was only the beginning. The next few weeks weren't easy. Darius Cole, once a man whose single call could move markets, now found himself rebuilding from scratch. Vanessa had kept her word. His executive access? Revoked. His company shares? Frozen in legal dispute. His name in elite circles? Quietly questioned. Doors didn't open the same way anymore. Some didn't open at all. And yet, Darius didn't break. Because every night, when he came home, his mother was there. Safe. Resting. Healing. And that alone told him he had made the right decision. The quiet helper. Lena never truly left. At first, she just stopped by to check on Evelyn. Bringing groceries, medicine, simple meals. "I didn't want her to feel alone," she said one evening, placing a warm bowl of soup in Evelyn's hands. Darius watched her quietly from across the room. There was something different about Lena. She didn't move like someone trying to impress. She didn't speak to gain anything. Everything she did came from a place Vanessa would never understand. Care. "Thank you," Darius said one night as he walked her to the door. "You don't have to keep doing this." Lena shrugged lightly. "I know," she replied. "I want to." Simple. No expectations. No strategy. And for a man who had spent years surrounded by calculated relationships, that felt unfamiliar, but real. Evelyn's recovery. Slowly, Evelyn began to regain her strength. With proper care, rest, and medication, her coughing lessened, her energy returned, and with it, her spirit. One afternoon, she watched Darius working on his laptop at the small dining table. His sleeves rolled up, focused but tired. "You've lost weight," she said gently. He glanced up, half smiling. "Occupational hazard." She shook her head softly. "No, you've lost something else too." He raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" She looked at him for a long moment. "Pressure." That caught him off guard. Evelyn smiled. You used to carry the world like it was glued to your shoulders, she said. Now, you just carry what matters. Darius leaned back slightly, thinking about that. Maybe she was right, because even though everything looked smaller on the outside, something inside him felt lighter. Rebuilding power. The right way. Darius didn't stay down for long. Men like him never do. But this time, he built differently. No shortcuts. No dependence on legacy connections. He started consulting independently, helping mid-level companies restructure their operations. At first, clients were hesitant. Some recognized him. Some doubted him. But results? Results don't lie. Within months, his strategies doubled profits for struggling firms. His reputation began to rebuild. Quietly, organically, new investors approached him, not because of his past, but because of his present. This time, his name stood on something unspoken. Lena became a constant presence. Not forced, not official, just there. Some evenings, she'd sit with Evelyn, listening to her stories. Other times, she'd quietly clean or cook while Darius worked late. And slowly, something shifted. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but undeniably. One night, during a power outage, the apartment was lit only by candles. Evelyn had fallen asleep early. The room was quiet. Darius stood by the window, looking out at the city lights flickering in the distance. Lena handed him a cup of tea. For the stress, she said softly. He took it, their fingers brushing slightly. A small moment, but it lingered. You've done more for us than anyone, he said after a pause. Lena shook her head. I didn't do it for you. He looked at her. Then why? She hesitated, then answered honestly. Because no one should suffer in silence. The words hit deeper than she intended. Because he knew. His mother had. For weeks. And he hadn't seen it. I should have known, he said quietly. Lena stepped a little closer. Sometimes, she said gently, people hide pain to protect the ones they love. He looked at her. Really looked this time. And for the first time, he didn't see a staff member or someone beneath his world. He saw a woman with strength, compassion, and quiet courage. Something rare, something real. Meanwhile, the fall begins. Across the city, Vanessa Whitmore sat alone in the very mansion Darius had walked away from. Everything looked the same. Perfect, polished, powerful. But something was missing. Control. Because slowly, things were shifting. Investors began asking questions. Where's Darius? Why is he no longer involved? Wasn't he the operational backbone? Deals slowed. Confidence wavered. And for the first time in years, Vanessa had to face something unfamiliar. Instability. She stood in her office, staring at the skyline, her reflection staring back at her through the glass. She had won. The house, the company, the power. So why did it feel like she was losing? Back to what that same night, in a small apartment across the city. Evelyn laughed softly at something Lena said. Darius sat across from them, watching, not distracted, not rushing, just present. And in that moment, he understood something no business deal had ever taught him. Success wasn't what you built. It was who you still had when everything else was gone. Lena glanced at him, catching him staring. What? She asked, a small smile forming. He shook his head. Nothing. But it wasn't nothing. Because for the first time in a long time, Darius Cole wasn't thinking about what he had lost. He was thinking about what he had found. And he didn't know it yet, but this quiet, simple life was about to give him something far greater than power. Something Vanessa could never buy. Time didn't rush. It unfolded, slowly, steadily, like something finally aligning the way it was always meant to. A different kind of life. A year later, Darius Cole stood in front of a glass building, not nearly as massive as his old headquarters, but undeniably his. Cole Advisory Group. His name, his vision, his rules. No inherited power. No forced partnerships. No compromises on what mattered. Inside, the office buzzed with energy. Lean teams. Focused minds. People who respected him not because of status, but because of what he had proven. This time, every inch of success felt earned. Clean. Unshaken. The woman who stayed. Back home. The apartment was no longer the same small, temporary space. It had grown, not into a mansion, but into a home. Warm lights, soft laughter, life. And at the center of it, Lena. She hadn't changed in the ways that mattered. Still gentle, still grounded, still the same woman who chose kindness when no one was watching. But now, she stood beside Darius, not behind him, not as staff, not as help, but as his partner. Their relationship hadn't been rushed. No dramatic confessions, no sudden declarations. Just time, trust, and truth. One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Darius finally said what had been building for months. I spent years building a life that looked perfect, he said quietly. Watched her prepare tea. You love him, Evelyn said gently. Lena paused, then smiled shyly. I do. Evelyn nodded. Good, she said. Because he finally learned what love looks like. Meanwhile, the empire cracks. Across the city, Vanessa Whitmore stood in a boardroom that once belonged entirely to her. Now, it felt unfamiliar, cold in a different way. Not controlled, uncertain. The numbers on the screen didn't lie. Losses, withdrawn investors, failed expansions. And one recurring question from every direction. Where is Darius Cole? Quote, because despite everything, people were starting to understand the truth. He hadn't just been part of the empire. He had been its foundation. But it never felt like this. Lena glanced at him. And what does this feel like? Quote, he didn't hesitate. Real. A soft silence settled between them. Then, I don't want a life without that anymore, he added. Lena's breath caught slightly, not because she didn't expect it, but because she did, and it still mattered. I'm not part of your world, she said honestly. Darius shook his head. You are my world. Simple, certain, final. And that was how their story truly began. A mother at peace. Evelyn watched it all with quiet joy. Her health had improved more than anyone expected. But more than that, her heart was light. No fear, no silence, no hidden pain. One afternoon, she sat with Lena in the kitchen. Her steps, but lighter somehow. You look different, she said. Darius nodded slightly. I am. She studied him. You rebuilt, she said. Almost impressed. I moved on, he corrected calmly. That landed. Vanessa crossed her arms slightly. You threw away everything, she said. For what? Quote. Darius didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced toward the window, where Lena stood outside, talking to Evelyn, both of them smiling softly. Then he looked back at Vanessa and said quietly, for everything that actually mattered. Silence. Vanessa followed his gaze, saw them, understood. For the first time, she didn't have a response. Because this wasn't a negotiation. This wasn't a deal. This was something she had never learned how to measure. Full circle. Months later, a small, intimate wedding took place. No media, no headlines, no power plays. Just people. Real people. Darius stood at the front, waiting, not as a billionaire, not as a powerful name, but as a man who had finally chosen the right life. Lena walked toward him, simple and radiant. Evelyn watched from the front row, tears in her eyes, but this time, they were tears of peace. When Darius took Lena's hands, he didn't see status. He didn't see difference. He saw truth, and that was enough. Final scene. Years later, a larger home, still warm, still filled with life. Evelyn sat comfortably near the window, sunlight resting gently on her face. Lena moved through the kitchen, humming softly. Darius stood in the doorway, watching them both, not distracted, not rushed, just present. Everything he once thought defined success, power, wealth, control, it all felt distant now. Because standing there, he understood something deeper, something permanent. He didn't lose everything that day he walked away. He lost what was never truly his. And in return, he gained what could never be taken. He stepped forward, joining them,